The air remembers your lungs before you do. It carries the scent of wet iron, cold, clean, metallic, and beneath it, and the slow smolder of mire, burned down to ash, each particle suspended like a sigh caught mid-breath. You breathe and it coats your tongue, not bitter, not sweet, but known. The kind of taste that lingers after you've forgotten why you cried. You do not recognize it as memory yet, not fully. Because memory requires a past tense, and here, in this place where time is folded inward like parchment left too long in a closed book, all tenses collapse. Past is present, future is breath. The act of inhaling is the echo of every prayer that was never uttered aloud. You step forward, not with purpose, no, and not anymore, but because the ground tilts beneath you, and standing still has become its own kind of surrender. Below your bare feet, shattered glass, stained, fractured, each shard a frozen tear, pressed into stone by centuries of knees that knelt here before yours. Light does not fall from above, it rises. Slivers of gold and cobalt drift up like slow-blooming flowers, catching on the dust, scattering halos around your ankles as you move. You do not look back. There is nothing behind you worth seeing. The cathedral's ribs, once upward-reaching pillars of faith, are now inverted arches, roots of stone plunging into sky as if heaven, too, had grown weary and decided to descend. You walk beneath them like a child, passing through the limbs of an ancient tree that no longer wishes to hold up the sun, but to cradle it. The bell does not chime, not yet. It hangs, tiny, fist-sized, suspended by nothing you can see until your sleeve brushes its edge, and the silence itself shudders. A ripple, a widening hollow where sound used to live. You feel it in your ribs, in the space between heartbeats. It is not quietness. It is listening made tangible. You do not know how long you've been descending. Not years, not decades, not even centuries. Time here has no calendar. Only breath. Only the slow unfurling of a wound that was never meant to heal. Only to be seen. The wall ahead, once scorched black by angels who fell trying to flee this depth, now softens into veils, thin as spider silk stitched with starlight and translucent and trembling when you breathe near it. Behind those veils, movement, not of wind, not of water, but of recognition. The air hums with the weight of things remembered before they were lost. And then, you see her. Not seated, not crowned, not radiant in glory as the hymns described, crouched. On her heels, back to you, fingers tracing grooves in stone worn smooth by centuries of touch. Her hair, silver, coiled like smoke, caught mid-turn, dissolves into mist before it reaches the floor, as though even her substance understands the grace of letting go. The altar before her is low, unadorned. No carvings of gods, no symbols of power. Only two figures carved deep into the rock, one kneeling, the other bent so low, their lips hover over the soles of the other's feet. Not worship, surrender. The basin between them holds not water but shadow, not darkness as absence, but darkness as presence, dense, still, thick enough to swallow a name whole and never return it. You do not speak. There is no need. Your foot finds the bent silver needle. It rests on the floor just beyond your step, a single thread still trailing from its eye, frayed but unbroken, vanishing upward into the ceilings, fissure where stone cracks open like an old scar. You kneel to pick it up. The metal is warm, not with heat, but with memory. It fits in your palm as if it were made for your fingers, and shaped by a hand you forgot you ever held. You thread it through the hem of your tunic, rough wool worn thin from descent, stitched and patched 100 times, each patch a plea, and each stitch a vow. You pull the frayed end tight, knot it around your wrist, not as binding, not as chain, but as an inheritance. The needle slips beneath skin, just barely, and you feel the thread move like a vein awakening. And then the seam opens along your left collarbone, not torn, not bleeding, just unfastening. Like a seal broken, not by force, but by permission. Blue light pools beneath your skin. a soft, pulsing luminescence, and traces a shape, two wings folded tight for years, never knowing they were meant to fly, only to carry. You do not gasp, you exhale. And in that exhale, long, slow, final, the basin ripples, not from wind, not from your touch, from the descent of the spider silk thread. It falls, unspooling, not fast, not frantic, but with the patience of a mother who has waded through wars and silences, through gods who forgot their names, through children who stopped calling for her. It settles across her shoulders. The bell does not ring, but stillness moves, like water lifted from a deep well. And then you feel it, her breath, not against your skin, not in the air between you, inside your bones. The chamber exhales, and with it comes the name, not spoken, not heard, but known, as if every grain of dust in this place had always carried it, and now, at last, dared to speak it aloud, not as invocation and not as command, but as recognition. Elida. The word does not echo. It lingers in the hollow of your ribs, in the curve of her spine, in the thread wrapped around your wrist, in the petal you didn't know was still there, buried in the child's shoe left, half buried near the altar. White jasmine, fresh, smelling of rain on grass, of a garden lost before memory began. You remember now, not with clarity, but with the weight of return. You were never seeking evil. You were being sought. The descent was not punishment for failure. It was preparation. Hell was not the place you fell into. It was the place that caught you, soft as moss, quiet as breath, and held you while you learned how to be found. You thought you climbed toward light because darkness had failed you, but it never failed. It waited, patient, unassuming, deep enough to hold your fractures without demanding their repair. The journals, you remember now, the stack of them, spine stamped with the downward arrow. You ran your fingers over each one in silence, pages blank save for every 100th line. And there, on every page, a single confession, written in a hand you knew from childhood dreams, some lullabies hummed when no one else was listening. She knew you'd come back even if you didn't remember why. You did not remember, and so you walked through ash and glass and inverted towers. And still, the shadow basin remembered, the bell remembered, the needle remembered, and now, she remembers you. Your breath sinks with the pulse of the room, in, out, each exhale deepening the silence, stretching it taut as a bowstring drawn by an archer who never needed to let go. The dust settles, not from falling, but from settling into you, as if it had always belonged there. Your fingers trace the carving again, kneeling figure, bent one. You understand now why she sits crouched, not because she is small, because she knows that divinity does not sit upon thrones. It kneels to kiss feet, to fold into wounds, to become thread in frayed hemlines, to rest inside broken bell chimes and forgotten petals. You do not pray, you do not beg, you simply remain, kneeling beside her, forehead pressed to the stone where her fingers have rested for lifetimes. The warmth of her skin rises through the rock. You feel it, not as heat, but as acknowledgement. The thread on your wrist trembles, the basin lifts, not in waves, in exhalation. And then you see her, reflected, not in water, but in darkness made visible. A face formed from liquid night, gentle, weary, luminous, with the quiet of a soul that has known all endings and still chose to begin again. Her eyes open, not to judge you, but to meet you. No voice speaks. The room does not thunder. There is no hymn, no choir, no golden proclamation from above. Only silence, deeper now, richer, as if every prayer ever whispered into wind, buried in soil, wept into stone, had finally gathered here and simply sighed. You do not reach for her, because you are already held. The needle hums against your skin. The jasmine petal lifts from the shoe, floating up, untethered, and drifts between you like a promise returned. The dust does not fall. It dances, and still she breathes, And you simply stay. Until even the need to be remembered becomes unnecessary. Until your very presence is the answer. She never left. The bell falls silent. The shadow settles. The thread knots itself into your pulse. Elida. And in that one word, spoken by stone, carried by dust, breathed from centuries of stillness, you are not found. You are remembered, as you always were.